carved from the beautiful wilderness, full of heart and grit, hunted by a vengeful preacher. But she is no victim. She's a survivor. Fear not. Retribution is coming. Revelation. Elizabeth lives in the Old West with her husband Eli and their 2 children, Matthew, Eli's son from a previous marriage, and Samantha. Liz works as a midwife in the Old West, able to hear but unable to speak, relying on sign language to communicate. One day, a new preacher, known as the Reverend, conducts a gathering at the local church. Upon hearing his voice, Liz appears to recognize him and is visibly frightened by his presence. Later that day, Liz faces a difficult decision between ensuring the safe delivery of a baby or saving its mother. She opts to euthanize the baby in order to save the mother, keeping the decision undisclosed until after the procedure is completed. Subsequently, Nathan, the husband of the woman who was previously pregnant, places blame on Liz for the outcome. On that evening, a drunk Nathan confrontationally arrives at Eli and Liz's home, making threats. Nathan says that Liz is accountable for the death of his son. Amidst the altercation, the Reverend intervenes, instructing Nathan to leave. Subsequently, the Reverend enters Eli's home and engages in a cryptic conversation with Liz, declaring her responsible for the death of Nathan's son and insisting on her punishment. Eli catches snippets of the discussion as the Reverend exits the house. The next morning, Eli discovers his sheep are dead, prompting him to look for Nathan, who is now missing. Later that night, Liz goes out undercover with the intent of murdering the Reverend, only to find her daughter's doll in the Reverend's bed instead. Simultaneously, the Reverend attacks Eli, disembowels him, and abandons him to die. Eli begs Matthew to lead the family into the mountains to find his father, instructing the boy to mercifully end his suffering before Liz and the children escape the farm. Exodus. A young girl named Joanna is taken in at the desert and cared for by a traveling Chinese family. Eventually, in the mining town of Bismuth, Joanna is sold to a brothel owned by Frank. Sally, a prostitute, shields her until she is executed for shooting a violent customer. Following Sally's death, another prostitute named Elizabeth safeguards Joanna. However, after biting an abusive client, Elizabeth endures severe punishment, losing her tongue. Joanna teaches sign language to Elizabeth from a book given by a doctor. Elizabeth, determined to forge a new path, orchestrates a plan to marry Eli through a marriage broker. The Reverend visits the brothel, recognizes Joanna, and subjects her to violent abuse. Elizabeth intervenes to save Joanna, but is brutally murdered by the Reverend. In retaliation, Joanna slashes the Reverend's throat. Fleeing the scene, Joanna severs her own tongue and takes Elizabeth's place alongside Eli. Genesis. In the arid desert, Samuel and Wolf, both severely wounded, emerge as the sole survivors of a deadly gold dispute that claimed the lives of several others. They set off together on a lone horse. Joanna resides with her parents, Anna and the Reverend, who is revealed to be her father. The Reverend, known for his strict religious adherence, frequently exhibits cruel and abusive behavior towards his family. When Samuel and Wolf collapse at their farm, Joanna discreetly tends to their injuries. Anna, realizing the Reverend's inappropriate desires for their daughter, confronts him, leading to a brutal incident where he beats and humiliates her, using a scold's bridle to inflict further indignity. In response, Anna tragically takes her own life in full view of the church congregation. The next day, the Reverend brings Joanna to church and initiates a wedding ceremony between himself and his daughter. Samuel attempts to rescue Joanna, but the Reverend ruthlessly murders him. Subsequently, Joanna endures further brutality from her father, who subjects her to whipping and assault. In the morning, she escapes from the oppressive environment. Retribution. Matthew is wounded by the Reverend while trailing Liz to her father-in-law's mountain residence. The Reverend proceeds to kill her father-in-law and threatens Liz with harm to her daughter. In a decisive moment, Liz takes action and kills the Reverend instead. Subsequently, after Liz transforms Eli's property into a sawmill, Nathan arrives to apprehend her. The Reverend had dispatched him to Bismuth, where he rose to the ranks of deputy and later sheriff. Having come across a wanted poster featuring Elizabeth Grundy, Nathan has arrived to arrest Liz. As Nathan guides her onto a ferry, with a final glimpse at her daughter playing on the shore, Liz deliberately plunges into the lake and succumbs to drowning. Her daughter Sam, now an adult with a child of her own, holds fond memories of her mother. Thanks for watching. To catch all the latest from us, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified as soon as a new video drops. We'll see you in the next one.